Mr. Chairman, we are now recording the meeting and streaming live to YouTube. You may begin when you're ready.
Okay. Good morning and welcome to MetroPlan Orlando's TSMO meeting. Calling this meeting to order. I'm Brian Sanders. I'll be chairing the meeting today. This meeting is in person. It is important for all TSMO members to attend our meetings in person. So all committee members are asked to be present in the MetroPlan boardroom for us to have a quorum. Members of the public will still be able to participate virtually and are encouraged to do so. There are 2 public comment points in the meeting. Members of the public attending in person who want to speak need to fill out a comment card and give it to Rachel. Those attending on Zoom and want to speak can use the raise hand feature on the Zoom screen. We also accept comments by email and phone message before the meeting. At this time, I'll recognize Mr. Hill.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members in the room and online. Good to see you on this happy Friday. Several announcements. The first one is that we did complete a successful webinar series on safety. Everyone was advised of this speaker series and we're complete now, but the recordings are available if you want to go back and check those out. And then on June 18th, we had a virtual public meeting on our transportation improvement program. And there were several members that attended. The video is available on our YouTube channel in case you want to also review that. Ms. Taylor Laurent will speak more about our tip this morning as one of your action items. Couple of housekeeping notes. Our office will be closed on July 4th. In case no one was aware of that, we will be closed. So if you reach out to us and nobody responds, it's probably because we're off. And then on July 12th, the MetroPlan Orlando board meeting will start at 8 a.m. instead of our normal time of 9 o'clock. So if you come at 9, you probably will come in and not see anyone, but it starts at 8 this month or in July. Also want to recognize our friends from Osceola County. Innovation Way is scheduled to open this morning at 10. Gary, is that still on? Great. So congratulations. Also in your agenda, information items, we do have listed the AI capacity maturity model workshop that I announced at one of our previous meetings. We had anticipated having a flyer from the department on this workshop, but we do not have it, but just some information on it. It will be open to everyone and you'll get an invitation via flyer. But it's scheduled on August the 1st from 10 to 12 a.m. and it's going to be at the RTMC. Also at your seats, you see draft NTP indicators to support our goals and objectives. For those that will be attending the TAC meeting, this will be one of the items that is one of the joint presentations this morning. So please hold on to it. And if you're not able to attend the TAC meeting, please take it with you. And also you have a flyer from the department on the 2055 transportation plan. I'm presuming Amy will speak more to that this morning. And then lastly, Mr. Chairman, just want to, as I'd like to say, plant a seed. And maybe by the end of the meeting, we'll see if it grows and how it cultivates. But we have had some interest in technology and transportation from one of our committees. And it's been a recurring discussion. And so as we have been for this year, we've been having the safety moments. We've been having the agency updates. Perhaps this is an opening for us as TSMO members to do a round of technology projects that we do, but do presentations to all the committees and boards. At our last meeting, Brian gave a presentation on his new project. I think that's one good example that we could use. And so I'd like for the committee to consider that. And it would probably be on a quarterly basis so that we don't run out of projects, concepts to present. But I just want to open up that discussion because again, I think there's an opportunity for us to tell our story outside of this committee. And again, has been this interest at one of our committee meetings about technology and transportation and how that's going to change everything. And it will. Now, how much it's going to change and in what way, I can't say. However, it is an area that we do need to be more mindful of. And this is an opportunity for us to tell our story. So depending on the time of the time that we use this morning, if we do have some time at the end, I'd like to open that up for discussion, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Okay.
Perhaps at the member comment stage, we could do that.
Okay.
Give everybody a few minutes to think about it along the way and maybe address it at that point.
Okay, I'd like to turn it over to our safety moment. This month, Alex Trager is going to be giving us a presentation.
Good morning, everyone. I'm pinch hitting for Mike Wilson today. He's at a bike ped MUTCD workshop this week, so he's putting in time at the national level, sharing our insights there. But nonetheless, as Eric mentioned, the safety moment, as well as status updates on the Regional Vision Zero Action Plan have really been fixtures of your agendas for the past 12 months. Today is kind of going to be a twofer, so to allow you guys to get to kind of core action. But I think we're at a good place with our regional plan, and I think likewise with many of your local plans, things are getting tangible. You're seeing those draft action plans, and you're looking at what that means to kind of day job and implementing moving forward. So we're going to use this month's safety moment just as a brief advertisement for our Regional Vision Zero Action Plan, which is going to be released very soon. But a reminder of our situation, and again, through past presentations, you've learned that 41% of fatalities on our transportation network is happening on just a very small portion of our region's transportation network, which is going to provide a lot of focus of what you're going to see in the Regional Vision Zero Action Plan, kind of a targeted approach, but also an acknowledgement that almost half of these traffic fatalities are behavioral for one careless or reckless reason or another. So something that we're keeping in mind as we're looking at countermeasures and the types of actions and paths that we're going to be moving forward with. And again, our vision is zero, and with our target year of 2050 to align with our other core products. So be on the lookout. What you'll see, and I think is kind of what's kind of pretty consistent with what you are having in your localized plans, a continued emphasis on planning, keep the momentum going, keep looking at the problem, and keep solving for those issues within our roles so we can advance the solutions to those additional phases. Public outreach, as I mentioned, we need to motivate, we need to inspire, we need to kind of seek change, and until we're kind of outside or from behind the wheel, we need to kind of do what we can to solve for safety with that non-infrastructure countermeasure approach. And then look for projects, big and small, but looking for those early wins, those short-term opportunities to start solving for safety until we have those necessary financial resources to develop some of the larger infrastructure projects. So you're going to see a lot more of that in countermeasure and approach within the Regional Vision Zero Action Plan, which is coming soon. So in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be releasing a draft of that regional plan, which encapsulates a lot of the insights from your county and local plans, but also provides kind of a regional perspective to moving forward, and especially as it relates to Metro Plan Orlando's role in the planning process. So be on the lookout. You'll get an email from Eric. You'll get one from Slade. You're going to hear me a little bit later. So you're definitely going to hear about and receive that electronic version of that plan. We're going to ask you for your feedback over kind of a 3-4 week period of time, so we can bring this hopefully back for your approval at your next agenda cycle. So we don't have you're off next month, so your next meeting is going to be in August. So hopefully we get good feedback. We're able to iterate and bring back something that's feasible and meaningful to the region. So obviously we have our hub site, vision0cfl.gov, so you can always go there for all the data and information, but stay tuned for more. And while you're reviewing the plan, just one other quick item, we're going to be pursuing additional resources. Mike Wilson's presented on this in the past about the SS4A supplemental planning grant. So while you're taking the time to review this document, we're going to be pursuing additional supplemental planning grant, looking at additional data analytics, kind of better understanding the situation and identifying solutions, more public outreach. Again, some of those things that we need to do no matter what, but also boots on the ground. We did a lot at the desktop level for the regional plan. We need to kind of deploy at the corridor level, at the intersection level with roadway safety audits, some additional focused corridor planning on that high injury network. So those are the core elements of our plan. Metro Plan Orlando is looking to fund the majority of that work within our existing resources, taking our current UPWP that's been approved and kind of working within available kind of eligible expenses as the local match. But we're also looking for partnership. I know we've had some initial discussions with the counties, and we're seeing some positive signs. But if your municipality has interest in financially participating, it's not a request, but just kind of putting it out there. If you're interested in kind of guaranteed focused efforts in your jurisdiction, that's certainly something on the table, but something we would want to have at least a soft commitment here in the next couple of weeks, just to make sure that we can cruise into the deadline, August 29th deadline to submit that application. It is a rolling deadline, so we're hoping to submit really late July, early August with that ask. So again, just planting a seed for you. Think about it today. I'll be around and I'll talk to you guys a little bit later on this morning. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alex. Appreciate the safety moments. I know it helps keep me centered on the target that we're trying to achieve here. So these are very helpful. I hope everyone else is sharing this with others as well. Before I get too far down this hill, I wanted to take a moment and thank Shad for stepping in for me during my time of need. So, and Lee, it was just a timely thing, right? Everything comes in time. So really appreciate you stepping up for me. Let's move on to the agency reports. This is the opportunity for any of our partners to speak to the committee. If any of our partners wish to provide updates during this slot, please let Rachel and Eric know via email at least a week prior to the TSMO meeting. So today we have Amy Beckman for our regular report out from FDOT. Amy, you're recognized. Thanks.
Good morning. Thank you. Today's report's going to look a little different. I'm going to give you a little bit of a preview of our 2055 Florida Transportation Plan. You're going to hear about the MTP a little bit later, which is your own version of the Long Range Transportation Plan. I'm going to be talking about Florida's Long Range Transportation Plan. So we're talking about the 2055. Sorry, I always forget to. The 2055 Florida Transportation Plan update will be a comprehensive statewide blueprint guiding Florida's 30-year transportation future. The FTP's transportation policies and lay the foundation for our investment in FDOT's work program. It's updated every 5 years, and the plan will be developed through steering committee guidance, focus group support, and comprehensive community engagement, both partner and public engagement. This plan will be developed over the next 18 months to be adopted in November of 2025, just 1 month prior to Metro plans. The 2055 FTP will be guided by a streamlined steering committee in collaboration with FDOT to provide input that will guide the development of the goals, objectives, and policies that make up the plan. Commissioner and Metro Plan board member Maya Uribe is serving on the steering committee, so that is a great point of contact outside of me if you have any input. I'll also give you some information in just a moment of how you can participate. The Florida Transportation Plan is more than just a plan. It's a forum that aims to connect communities, policies, and programs across the state. The Florida Transportation Plan is a collaborative effort of state, regional, and local transportation partners in both the public and private sectors. For the 2055 FTP, we have divided Florida into 5 regions for development. to better understand our unique and diverse communities and tailor the characteristics and needs of each region. This also helps to provide the framework at a local level so that we have better cohesion of strategies across municipality and jurisdictional boundaries. As you can see, the development is going to take place over 3 phases. You can see that across the top of the screen: the visioning, statewide goals, and regional objectives, implementation framework, and plan development. The FTP will have statewide goals and regional objectives, empowering our communities to develop local strategies around the FTP's framework. So here's the information that you will probably be most interested in. As communities are at the center of everything FDOT does, and we will be holding multiple public engagement opportunities throughout the FTP update, including statewide webinars and regional workshops throughout the state. There are going to be 5 focus groups that we're also going to be having participation by the communities and by local partners. And those will be centered around our compass, the 5 major topic areas of our compass. So we were going to have a focus group on safety, economic development and supply chain, resilient infrastructure, technology, and workforce development. These focus groups do require pre-registration. We are having virtual hearings coming up. The first round, they're going to have them every few months. The first round is starting in July. So I want to point that out to you. I will send an email to Mr. Hill shortly here after my presentation to send these dates and times to you. You can sign up for one of these focus areas or all 5 if you want, whatever is your preference. The first one is the safety group. We'll be meeting on July 9th at 9 a.m. Economic development and supply chain is the 10th at 2 p.m. Resilient infrastructure is the 11th at 2 p.m. Technology is July 18th at 2 p.m. And workforce development is the 23rd at 9 a.m. This slide will show you the overall timeline that we have set out. You can see that the planned time periods for steering committee meetings, focus groups, and public engagement opportunities, as well as the public comment opportunity from September to October of 2025, with the final adoption set for November of 2025. So please come help us develop the 2055 Florida Transportation Plan. You can visit floridaftp.com to learn more about the plan and find out how you can get involved. You are encouraged to join a focus group, participate in a webinar or regional workshop, or simply put your comments and feedback at the website. Join us as we build Florida's transportation future together. I have placed cards for you at your seats that has a QR code that will take you to the floridaftp.com. It's a little bit of a different website. It's a virtual room. So it's as if you were going to a public hearing. You can walk around and click on different topics, but it also has all of the information on there about the focus groups and upcoming events. With that, I thank you for your time, and I'm welcome to hear any questions you may have.
Thank you, Amy. Very nice. Committee members, any questions, comments? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Now we'll move on to roll call. Let's go ahead with that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll ask all committee members to keep your microphones off until called. Please say here or present. Barden.
Here.
Crandell for Barkessa.
Here.
Brock.
Here.
Carson.
Here.
Cologne.
Here.
Delachey.
Here.
Eid. Alasar.
Present.
Elliott Moore.
Present.
Gordon.
Here.
Homayuni. Horn. Jameson.
Here.
Dredge. Lim.
Here.
McGrath.
Here.
Patel for Medenhall. Price. Pullum. Sanders.
Here.
Senerans.
Here.
Smith.
Present.
Tahira.
Here.
Martello for Williams. Yeager.
Present.
Yeargame.
Here.
That concludes the roll call, Mr. Chairman. We do have a quorum.
All right, thank you very much. Now we'll move on to public comments on our action items. We ask that you provide your name and address for the record and hold your comments to 2 minutes. If any members of the public wish to comment and join us by virtual, we ask you to use the raise hand function and you'll be recognized, or dial *9 on your phone keypad. Do we have anyone virtual?
Mr. Chair, we do not have any hands raised.
Okay, but we receive anything?
We did not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, very good. Then we'll move on to the action items. We have 3 action items today. Members making a second motion, please state your name. For our first item is approval of the May 31st, 2024 TSMO meeting minutes. There we go. Do I have a motion for approval of the minutes? Shad Smith, move to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, motion passed. Next, we're considering the request for recommendation of approval, the adoption of the TIP for fiscal year 2025 to 2029. The information is provided in tab 2. We'll hear from Taylor.
Good morning. Jason Sartorius out traveling today, so I'll be filling in to provide the update on the, I almost said the 2050 transportation plan. That's next on the Transportation Improvement Program, and requesting your recommendation of approval to move this forward. So beginning with a quick refresher on the TIP, the Transportation Improvement Program identifies all of the federal and state funded transportation projects within our region over the next 5 years. And this does include locally funded and Central Florida Expressway projects for informational purposes. And this document, again, is updated annually and consistent with our adopted prioritized project list, which was last adopted in July of 2023. There are 11 sections within the TIP, as Jason presented on at your prior meetings, and we have 513 projects that are sorted into these 11 different categories. And as you can see, we have a lot of projects going on within the region, with 280 federal, state, and turnpike funded projects over the next 5 years, totaling approximately $5.4 billion of transportation investment over this time period. Now, this does not include the Central Florida Expressway Authority projects, as I mentioned earlier, which is investing $4.1 billion in transportation in our region. And this also does not include our locally funded projects, which is an additional investment of $1 billion in transportation in the region. The pie chart that you're seeing here on the screen does break down the federal, state, and turnpike funded projects into those 11 categories that were described on the previous slide. And in terms of our regional federal funds, the TMA funds through Metro Plan Orlando, these are applied to 59 projects throughout the region over the next 5 years, totaling $185 million worth of transportation investment. Here, the pie chart has subdivided slightly to be able to show how we're allocating those funds across complete streets, transportation systems management and operations projects, bicycle and pedestrian improvements, as well as transit. And there have been a few small changes to the TIP since the preview that you were provided at your last meeting. At the request of FDOT, we've added the date of our next federal certification, which is shown on page 14. At the request of the City of Orlando, the length of the Corinne Drive project was updated for consistency with the work that is to be performed. Then at the request of Osceola County, we've updated the mileage for the Old Lake Wilson Road widening project, again, for consistency with that locally funded project. And then also for Osceola County, the next two, the Jones Road project and the Lake Toho Pond Trail project. Those have been updated again with requests for revising the future funding of Jones Road to make sure that it's consistent with the local funds that are expected to be spent on that particular project. And for the Lake Toho region project, that was to update the historic funding on that particular project to represent the local funds that have already been applied to that project. And then we've also improved the line work a little bit on some of our projects shown in the TIP online viewer to better visualize the projects and make it easier to look at that information in a virtual format. So speaking of virtual, on June 18th, we hosted our virtual public meeting on Zoom from 11:30 to 1. And this year we changed up the format a little bit, and we had Keith Slater from FDOT present on the Corridors Program, I-4, and the Moving Florida Forward project. We also had Miss Amy Beckman, who you heard from already this morning, present on the state highway system projects, and Miles O'Keefe present on the links projects. We were very grateful to have our guest speakers come in and assist us with presenting this information. And we also had several partners here in this room as well as on TAC assist us as well. So thank you for your assistance with the Q&A section of the TIP public meeting. That helped make it a very successful event. In terms of the questions that we did receive, there were a few questions about roundabouts, the Safe Routes to School program, regional transit, as well as some very project-specific questions. We also received several positive comments from both the public and technical partners throughout the region on our TIP online viewer. So that was very exciting to hear as we've debuted that new tool this year. And for those who missed it, the video of the recording is available on our website for you to review at your leisure. And I do want to mention that the comment period for the TIP is still open. So if anyone does have any public comments, we request that those are submitted to our staff by July 8th. Unless there are any other questions this morning, we are asking for your recommendation of approval to the fiscal 2025 through 2029 Transportation Improvement Program as it's been presented today.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Taylor, for that presentation. Do any members have any questions, comments? All right, seeing none, do I have a motion for approval?
Shad Smith, I move to approve the 2025-2029 TIP as presented.
Thank you, Shad. Do I have a second?
Lasar, second.
Second, Senators.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion passes. Thank you, Taylor. Next, we have recommendations for the adoption of the draft PPL for 2030 to 2040. Supplemental information's in your tab 3. Mr. Downs, go ahead and start your presentation.
All right, thank you. Good morning, everyone. So I'll be walking you through our annual prioritized project list update. At our last meeting of TSMO, I brought the preview version, and now I'm going to bring you the final version. The PDF of this document also is loaded onto the screens in front of you for reference. So I won't spend too much time on background. I don't want to repeat a whole lot of what was gone over last month, but the long and the short of it is we take projects from the MTP and move them into the prioritized project list, which is essentially the on-deck circle of projects looking for funding. And then once funding is allocated to project phases, they move into the TIP, which Taylor just finished talking about. The update of the PPL happens annually. And as I mentioned, we came to you as well as all of the other advisory committees looking for feedback. Thank you to everyone who weighed in during that process. We were able to incorporate those updates and edits into the final document before you today. Quick overview of some of the changes. We were able to update project limits and phasing updates to a couple of projects on the complete streets list. We have a couple of edits to the off-system construction assistance projects, as well as some administrative changes to the regional transit list. And I know that was very fast, but that is the long and short of it. We had not a whole heck of a lot of edits this time around. So with that, I'll be asking for your approval for the 2030 to 2040 prioritized project list as presented. Thank you. Happy to take questions.
Right. Slade, I'm sorry I didn't get to catch you this morning. I sent over some changes. They're probably not in the document that was posted because I was a little late, but are those, you'll take care of those? Those are kind of.
Yeah, I did get your email. Thank you for sending that over. And I wanted to kind of talk offline about some of the edits that you talked about. Yeah.
So I didn't know if we need to mention it or just.
But you are correct. They're not in the final
I knew
document in front of you at the moment, just because we wanted to give everyone the 7 days required by sunshine law.
Right. Yeah, I knew that.
Sure.
So, okay.
Any other questions? Very good. Maybe Shad, do you want to?
Yeah,
Make the motion with
I'll
the
move to
adjustment.
approve the 2030, 2040 priority project list. Project list.
Can be
With
a
your
mountain.
amendments? that would be
Yeah,
submitted.
well, with my amendments, hopefully, yes. Yeah, they're just city names, county clarifications, that's all. They're very minor.
Very good, very good. Do we have a second?
Second, Carson?
Very good, very good. Any questions? All those in favor, say aye. Those opposed, say no. Hearing none, motion passed. Thank you very much, Slade.
Thank you.
Next, we have two presentations, and the first one is the congestion management process status update, and Laura is going to give us a presentation. Thank you.
All right, good morning, everybody. Good to see you everyone in person this morning. So as Mr. Sanders noted, I'm going to be giving you an overview of the work we've been doing over the last couple months on our congestion management process update and what's going to be coming moving forward with that. So I wanted to start off just a little table setting, remind everyone when we think about congestion management, we're talking about the application of strategies in order to optimize the performance and reliability of our system. And that when we think about congestion, there's sort of two broad types of congestion we think about, both recurring and non-recurring congestion. And when we get into thinking about what a congestion management process is, it's really just a systematic means of managing congestion that is objectives-based and performance-driven, with the intent being that when we think about how we're investing our dollars in managing congestion, that we're focusing on the outcomes that we would like to see. And I will note that a lot of the strategies that tend to come out of a congestion management process do tend to be TSMO strategies. So congestion management first showed up in legislation with the Intermodal Surface Transportation Efficiency Act in 1991, which introduced the idea of a congestion management system. In 2005, that safety legislation got rid of the congestion management system and replaced it with a congestion management process, with the major difference there being that a congestion management system was seen as a sort of point in time look at the system, whereas a congestion management process is something that's ongoing, sort of a working document that can always be updated to reflect changing goals or objectives for a community or changing concerns around congestion. Why do we do a congestion management process? Well, every MPO with a population of 200,000 or more people is required to develop a CMP. However, federal regulations are not prescriptive about either what the approach needs to be in defining how the congestion management process comes together or in defining the update period. Here at Metro Plan Orlando, we update our CMP every 5 years, generally on the same schedule as our long-range MTP update, and we do that for a couple different reasons. First, so that those goals and objectives that are defined by the long-range planning effort can be reflected in how we think about our congestion management planning. And then second, so that the strategies that come out of the CMP that are recommended can be considered for inclusion in the MTP. There is no requirement that those strategies from the CMP are included in the MTP, but it does give us the option to consider them as we're putting together that cost feasible list. Now, as I noted, there is no prescribed manner of how you put together a CMP, but FHWA did put out some guidance in 2015 that we use here that generally looks like us first defining what our goals and objectives are going to be around congestion management, defining what our study area looks like. For us, it's just a 3-county planning area. We then define what our performance measures are going to be. What metrics are we tracking over time to make sure we're moving in the right direction? What targets have we set for each of those measures? We then identify what the strategies are going to be that we think are going to get us to those targets. And then we define some sort of monitoring and evaluation program. So that sort of sets the table for what a CMP is and why we're doing it. The rest of this presentation is just going to be a brief overview of what was incorporated into the 2045 CMP update and how we're updating for the 2050 CMP. So similar to what we're doing this time, for the 2045 CMP, we took those long-range goals that were defined as part of the 2045 MTP and just basically rolled those into the CMP, with the idea being that we felt that the goals were very strong and could be guiding principles for how we thought about congestion management. This slide shows sort of a sampling of the performance measures that were included in the CMP last time. You'll note that we defined some performance measures for each of the 5 goal areas that we had defined, and that we looked at performance measures that both looked at things that would impact congestion, things like how many crashes there were on the system, how long it's taking us to clear incidents, as well as measures that are impacted by congestion, things like air quality or delay on the system. In terms of the strategies that were included in the 2045 CMP, they were divided into 3 sort of broad buckets. The first being strategies that improve safety for all users, with the idea being that many of those strategies could impact non-recurring congestion. The other 2 buckets looked at strategies that either optimize system capacity or that try to shift single occupant vehicle trips over to other modes of travel. The idea being that those 2 other buckets could impact potentially both recurring and non-recurring congestion. So for the CMP update that we're in the midst of right now, we are sort of updating everything, and I'll go through each of these buckets in turn. As I mentioned before, once again, we think that the goal areas that have been defined for the 2050 CMP and recently adopted are very strong and are serving as those guiding principles once again for how we're defining the objectives. They're going to be the baseline for our 2050 CMP update. For the performance measures, we are sort of wrapping up a big data collection effort to look at how things have been trending over the last 5 years, if we've been moving in the right direction on our targets. And part of what we'll be doing is looking at both adding some additional performance measures to make sure we're having that really holistic view of how we're managing congestion on the system. There will be some performance measures that will likely be deleted, either because we don't think that's the right thing for us to be looking at, or they were sort of captured in some of the other performance measures, so that we can streamline what we're looking at year over year. And then for a couple of the performance measures, we're looking at new data sources that are either easier for us to get to on a recurring basis, or that we think are just more accurate. So that's what's happening there. For the 2050 CMP strategies, we're going through sort of the same decision-making process. We've been evaluating which strategies that were recommended in the 2045 CMP that have actually been implemented and trying to assess how they've been helping us move towards our targets or not. And we'll be assessing over the next month or 2 which strategies we're going to continue and carry into the 2050 CMP, which may be dropped, and if there are any new strategies that we would like to add. And then a major development for the 2050 CMP update is we're adding sort of a CMP scorecard that's under development right now. The idea being there that it'll be something that could be included in our committee and board packets, probably on a quarterly basis. And it won't include all of the performance measures, but probably something on the order of 5 to 8 that really give us a view of how the system is performing at those quarterly intervals that we can share with both our board and committees and the public. Thinking about what our next steps are, in a couple of weeks, we have an internal workshop here with staff for the project team to sort of talk through the preliminary recommendations for our objectives, performance measures, targets, and strategies. We're going to take that input from staff and bring it to that August 8 MTP technical workshop. So hopefully most of you can attend that. We'll be taking your input there on the recommendations for the CMP, and then we'll be rolling those recommendations into our draft product that intend to come back in the fall to talk about what our recommendations are for the 2050 CMP at that time. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Question for Laura? Everyone was very impressed with your presentation. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. This is our final presentation here. Speed management through signal timing. Mr. Neil Turner from FDOT District 1. Morning.
Morning. Thanks for having me. So as you said, Neil Turner, I'm the arterials engineer over in District 1, based out of Bartow. And I'm just going to talk to you guys a little bit about something that we piloted over there that we're looking to expand throughout our district that you might be interested in doing. So in 2021, District 1 Secretary approached traffic operations and said, hey, I want a zero cost, immediately effective way to drive down speeds on our worst corridor. It's the #1 ped bike fatality corridor in District 1. He said, traffic operations, you got to do it. Turn around and do it. You don't have any resources. So we took to research and found what quite a few people were doing. And yeah. So we chose, so this is the corridor. So #1 highest fatality corridor per mile in District 1. In a 5-year period, you can see all the stats here, 31 fatalities, a lot of serious injury crashes. There's a lot of bike and ped traffic crossing the street here. And it's a 3 to 4 mile segment. It runs south to north from Orlando Avenue all the way up to Cortez Boulevard, heavily trafficked. And then on the northern side of it, we're posted 45. On the southern side, it jumps up to 50. Where that kind of blue slash is down south of that, it's posted 50. But we're seeing 85th percentile speeds going 10 miles above the posted speed limit, which everybody's seeing everywhere. But we were like, okay, what can we drive this down to? What's our target? Is our target posted? Can we go below posted? And so we kind of thought, what can we do without any other changes, just with our signal timings to drive down these speeds? So the first thing we did, we reduced the cycle lengths, and without getting too technical, we basically said we're not going to give people as much green time. So there's not enough time to get outside of what has queued up so you can speed up. So only the platoon of vehicles that is at the first signal can progress down to the next signal, next signal, next signal. That way we don't give anybody that's the tail end wide open streets to go speeding through. And then we actually targeted a progression speed lower than the posted speed limit. So we timed our signals so that it would be most efficient if you were traveling at 40 miles an hour instead of 45. And then we added LPI, leading pedestrian interval, to each intersection, mainly on the pedestrians that were concurrent with the through movement there, just to give them a little bit of an extra boost, get out there and get established in the crosswalk. And the most important thing we did here that it's kind of a newer concept was we did an overnight coordinated pattern. And so overnight, most signals run free. You don't have the volumes to make it a coordinated system. So we said, well, what if we did, because we had pedestrian bike fatalities overnight. So what if we platooned vehicles overnight and gave those peds and bikes gaps, predictable gaps, right? And so I'll get through. We pulled some data through Bluetooth travel time, through some Wavetronics devices, and then we monitored the crash analysis. And so we implemented this in October of 2021, just so you know. So we've got quite a bit of data now. And just a quick snapshot of what we did. You can see we had artificially high cycle lengths already. So we were kind of giving people wide open green bands. And so there was room to reduce that. We don't want to create more congestion than is necessary either. So we're trying to maintain vehicle progression without providing people the opportunity to speed. So you can see we dropped our cycle lengths during certain patterns. We were all the way up at 200 seconds down to 140 seconds in the midday. And then we added that 80-second pattern in the overnight period running from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. And we also broke the system up. So the southern 5 signals where it was posted 50 miles an hour, we changed them a little bit. So overnight, they're running a 60-second cycle length because there's less vehicles down south overnight. And so what you can see is, so we collected all this data. We reduced our speeds between 4 and 8 miles per hour. And what that means, though, is that your travel time increased. I mean, it's a direct correlation there. And so we did invite another stop through the corridor. So on average, most drivers were going to stop one more time throughout the corridor, which we thought was okay. We didn't see a uptick in complaints from drivers. And generally speaking, there still was progression throughout the day. Our TMC signal engineer was constantly monitoring this. So if there ever was an uptick, we were making sure there wasn't unwelcome congestion. We were making sure we were still keeping vehicles traveling. So you can see here, the red line is when we put in this retiming plan. So this is a 12-month moving average of fatalities month to month. And so that's why it's below 1 already. But you can see we were kind of holding steady. And since the retiming, we've been ticking down. There's been a few outliers that have caused it to tick back up. But we've seen some improved numbers, less and less fatalities. And just a few more things. So incapacitating injuries as well, also on the downward trend. And then injuries going down as well. And then we expected crashes would go up. Typically, when you have people stopping more often, there's more rear end crashes. However, with this one, we actually saw our total crashes held pretty steady since we did this timing plan. And then most importantly, so our safety team went through, did all the crash history, and they determined with a 95% confidence that we had done a 50% reduction in fatal and serious injury crashes on this corridor since we did this retiming. Now, most of those are vehicle crashes. We're still, with vehicle speeds still at 40 miles an hour, we're still seeing pedestrian bicyclist fatalities, but that reduction is largely vehicle crashes. And so the target would still be to drive the speed down even more so this is more effective with peds and bikes, but we are seeing a major reduction in fatal crashes. And this was mainly during the day, and then you can get into, this is the overnight pattern that we have. And so what I want to point out is we've had 0 bike ped fatalities in the overnight time frame since we implemented this. So September of 2022 is when we did the overnight pattern. As you can see, just 0. Went from 4 fatalities in the 3 years before and 2 incapacitating injuries down to 0. So we're very proud of this. And I mean, hoping that it stays the same, but we're doing more on this corridor as well. So this was just the first step, was to drive down speeds. And so next steps, we've actually expanded. We've identified newer corridors where we think this will work in different counties. And we've actually started it in Lee County and Sarasota County. And then there are things that you have to consider. You know, if you're going to do an overnight pattern, you have to be addressing something, right? So you can identify areas that have an overnight crash history before we go in and do this. And then you have to have the spare capacity. You can't reduce cycle lengths if there's no capacity. And then we're just getting more and more measures here. One of the things we really want to look at is red light runners if we're doing this. So if you have to stop one more time, typically do see an increase in red light runners. So we're starting to measure that and make sure that we're not adding another fatal flaw to something. You know, we don't want to create a new problem. And then just overall in our district, trying to shift from strictly vehicle operations and vehicle throughput and have a holistic approach. Make sure we're servicing everybody. And so specifically, I just want to highlight, this was a bike crash that happened on the corridor shortly after we implemented these timings. And now I'm not going to say that because of our timings, this was not a fatality, but this gentleman was hit on the main line and was carried to the hospital, but was also expected to make a full recovery. And so was not a fatality. We want to hope that this is because of our efforts. But I'm not going to say it directly is. It's just something we wanted to highlight. This corridor has so many ped bike fatalities. We had to do something. And that'll wrap it up. If you have any questions, please let me know.
All right, Neil, that was a very interesting presentation that you had. 6 fatalities per year. In just a couple of years, you're racking up over a dozen fatalities. The roadside memorials just pile up. That's super high. And it's incredible that you were able to reduce that in half. And 3 per year, still too many, but a simple improvement such as this made such an impact for that corridor, that community. Does any of our members have any comments? Kelly, go ahead.
You have my attention. So thank you. That was great. Can we get a copy of this PowerPoint? So one question for you, Neil. So you said you need spare capacity, but I would assume that means, yeah, during rush hours, you might not be able to implement, but you could during certain times of day. Is that correct?
Correct. So
Okay.
our main focus, so we started throughout the entire time of day, and then we said, well, AM peak, PM peak, it's already so congested, you can't get up to speed anyway. So we started to focus on the evening plans, and then we expanded into the overnight, where we just said that's where we're seeing more speeding vehicles.
Thank you. Eric. So this makes me think of, I don't know how many of you have read the book Confessions of a Recovering Engineer. If you haven't, highly recommended, especially if you're an engineer. But in our signal retiming that we do annually, one of our factor is really how much money did we save hypothetically the commute by the reduced commute. I think it'd be great if we could instead focus on the measures that are in this presentation. The cost savings due to travel time reduction is, according to Chuck Marone, the author of that book, is very highly suspect analysis. So this sounds like this is where we should be looking.
In fact, we just requested, and I'll defer to Laura, but we just requested a new list of signal retiming corridors. And so I'm sure that at some point we're going to have that discussion on how we want to evaluate our signal retiming program, because you're right, historically, we've been focusing on benefit cost, and that typically relates to the vehicles. And so we want to see what other value we can get out of our signal retiming program related to safety and other benefits. And the other thing is, I know when we first started our signal retiming program, we had a huge benefit cost return. And I can recall, and I typically do state, we're not gonna always, number one, get this kind of return because we can only tweak it so much. And so as that has gone down, which it has, we need to see what other value we can get out of our retiming program. And I remember when I learned about the work that District 1 was doing, and I know Mike Wilson has always made speed an area of concern, that if we were able to control that and monitor that, then we could reduce the number of crashes, especially pedestrian crashes and fatalities. So again, Kelly, we will see how we're going to evolve that program, because it doesn't have to remain the same. It can evolve. I don't know, Laura, I don't know if you have any other. Okay.
No question. My question, and you might have said this, but what was your signal spacing on that corridor? I don't remember. if you
So
said
that is actually one of the really important things. We did, these are between 1/4 and 1/2 mile apart. And so there was a pretty easy way to make sure that if you were leaving the first signal, you saw red at the next signal. So there really wasn't an opportunity to really jump up to speed because you were just racing into the back of the
Right,
queue.
yeah, that's helpful.
And we tried this in another corridor in Lakeland, and it was not a great application. We actually just basically started having split failures on the main line because we had one intersection that drove and needed a high cycle length, and we just couldn't get it down. So signal spacing is a big thing, and actively managing it too. So our TMC engineer was on this corridor for a good year, making sure that we were not having mainline split failures and we're still servicing all the people. So
Yeah.
a lot of effort for up
And
front.
you said it was about 7 miles long total?
No, it's about a 3 mile long segment.
3
It's not
miles.
that long. Yeah. And so,
Okay. Yeah, that's significant, I think, the signal spacing.
mhm,
Because some of the places I know I was thinking of, our signal spacing is too long then.
mhm.
We're 1/2 mile, 3/4 mile, and it's just too much time for the speed to get up.
Yes. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. And
And
when
that's probably what Lakeland.
the southern portion, we bumped it, we took it off and we made it its own system because it had a little bit further along signal spacing. And overnight, there wasn't enough side street traffic to really generate the signal going red on the main line. So people really could just speed up. We tried recalling the side street, but people don't like rolling up on a red with no traffic coming on the side street.
Right. Thanks again for a good presentation. Wish we have spare capacity in Orange County so we can do the same thing. But unfortunately, most of our roads are at or over capacity. My question is, why did you have such a long cycle in the beginning?
I mean, so just as you guys have alluded to our retiming program, what they're judged on, our consultants, is the improvement of travel time. And it's the mainline travel time that's what they're judged on. And so over time, right, we retime every 5 years, and that corridor got a lot more attention. And so just over time, we artificially inflated that cycle length, trying to improve the north-south throughput. And so we decided, I mean, what are we doing? What's the goal here? So we had to revisit that. So that's why we had spare capacity there.
I have another question. How was the roadway lighting along that corridor?
It wasn't great. Since then, District 1's been throwing everything at this corridor. And so we have added roadway lighting, and we're in the process of adding 5 PHBs along the corridor as well. And it used to be a 7-lane with a 2-way left turn lane all the way through. And now we've got medians in and directionalized left turns throughout.
Very good. Very good. Way to focus on the target. All right, Neil, thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation. Next, we have common presentations. We have one common presentation with the TAC meeting. For those of you who are available, I encourage you to stay for TAC. General information, and there's general information under tab 5 of your agenda. There's also a list of upcoming meetings in your agenda for notable meetings are the MetroPlan Orlando Board meeting on July 10th, next TSMO meeting on August 23rd, at our normal time, 8:30. This time, member comments. Let's circle back around to what you were talking about earlier.
Mr. Chairman, I can defer, and if you want to go around and get member comments first, and then I can.
Yeah, okay.
Go ahead and follow.
Okay,
Yeah,
sure.
I have just, I didn't want to put Amy on the spot, especially since her presentation was something else. But I saw that Winter Springs got a speed reduction. They did some kind of study and they're reducing the speed on 434 for a pretty good length of all the older part of Winter Springs. And I was immediately very jealous, because I really want our section of 434 in Longwood to be the same way, at least from 1792 to Range Line. Those speeds are really high. There's a lot of crashes, a lot of KSIs. After looking at more of the data, we realized there's a lot of motorcycle KSIs. And I think that's one of the things, again, is just speed. People don't see them and they misjudge and they pull out in front, motorcycles and so forth. And pedestrians, we have some fatalities. And a lot of that would not be nearly as bad if it's all about speed. And they're getting ready to do the POP project. And so one of my first comments on the POP project was, because originally a couple of years ago, I'd talked about reducing the speed. And they said, yeah, I think we can do that. And so on the POP project, I made that comment and I got back, that's not in the scope, we're not doing it. And I was like, okay, you're gonna pave the road, make it smoother, put down new stripe, and people are gonna fly up and down it faster than they are even now. And to go and change a few signs on a POP project is pretty ridiculous that they can't go and reduce the speed and do a study. That I think it's one of the best ways we can get any kind of safety improvement. And I think a lot of us have corridors like that, but I mean, people just fly up and down some of these segments. And that's why I was curious about the distance between the signals, is because some of ours are just too long to do the management that way. Unless we had some signals, which I have some developers that would like to do that. But I don't know if that's really a feasible thing. So I just wanted to make that comment and kind of see how we do it. I don't know if, signal retiming necessarily does anything, so, but it's more about speed. So that's it. Thank you.
Any other members? Seeing any?
Okay. So let's see, did we get any growth from the seeds I planted earlier? It's play on words. So again, it's similar to Neil's presentation. I believe it would be of value to everyone, all of our stakeholders, if we were able to come forth at least on a quarterly basis and just talk about our TSMO projects. Gary's work in Osceola County with looking at near misses, I think is a good one that needs to be told. Again, Brian's story, I think, is a great one that needs to be told. And so if I have your support, I'd like to start to work with you and just talk about some of your projects and see if we can just start scheduling some report outs and move forward from there. So this doesn't have to be a vote. If I can get nods or
Smiles.
yeah, Eric,
Yeah, it's Chad. I think it's a great idea. We've had some really good ones. My only concern is once it goes to like the I forget that committee's name, but it's the smaller cities.
The municipal
Advisory, thank you, that's it. Municipal Advisory Committee. I know whatever you say in that meeting comes back to our commission every time for our commissioner and talks about it. So if he doesn't understand it, he's gonna come back with the wrong impression. And that's my biggest thing on some of our stuff. It's technical in that, but that's my only concern. I'm sure other people have commissioners that do the same thing. And so then they blow something out of proportion. It's like, no, it's not applicable here. It's, it's those kind of things. But I think it's a great idea because I think a lot of those other committees don't have that full grasp. I mean, TAC probably does, because a lot of people here on TAC, so, but the other ones,
Yeah, and I
I'm
think
not sure.
generally there's a misunderstanding about TSMO and exactly what it is. So again, we can help educate our stakeholders. And then also, again, I'll work with whoever volunteers to give a presentation in terms of the content and to keep it as simple as possible and as straightforward as possible. So that, the technical parts of the presentation don't get misrepresented in a different form. Mr. Chairman, that's all I've asked, and I think I've gotten authorization to do this.
I think even demonstrating small gains, we're here for collaboration and sharing our techniques and our successes. And that's the way good results are propagated.
Let me add to your comment that I think it's also good. I think there's value in telling the not so good stories.
True.
Okay, what did we learn? And what did we learn before we try and do it again? So I see it that way.
Sure. Good. All right, we're at that point for public comment. This is a final opportunity. If any members of the public wish to comment, please use the raise hand function. At least, do we have anybody online that would like to speak?
Mr. Chair, we don't have any hands raised on the virtual side.
Okay, I imagine no one's emailed you since I spoke a minute ago. So
You're correct.
very good. Well, it's 9:32 and I adjourn this meeting. Thank you.